Prepare your ears, humans. Happy, Sad, Confused begins now.
Colin Hanks is here, and we're talking about his delightful, beautiful love letter to one of the icons, John Candy. Colin, it's good to have you back. How are you, man?
Nice to be back, Josh. I'm good, man. It's really good to see you.
Same. Congratulations. We're talking like literally on the eve of what's been a long road for John Candy. I Like Me. This is the doc that celebrates somebody that's close to many of our hearts. Anyone that listens or watches this podcast probably loves John Candy. But give me a little sense of how you're feeling. It has been a long road. Correct me if I'm wrong, and how you're feeling at this moment right now.
No, it has. Each one of these scenarios is always a little bit different, with each movie, but there is something that's kind of unique about this one, and it's not just because, the amount of time that it took and, all of the different, things that, go into, making a documentary, some of which are great, some of which are, almost make you want to pull your hair out and cry. But there's something really special about sort of unveiling this, and it kind of, feeling like it's kind of like the last John Candy movie, and being able to be a part of that is really special, and it's not at all lost on me. So yeah, this has been pretty fun.
I was gonna say that's kind of like the compliment I was gonna give you guys and your entire team. Like watching this movie, it does feel like you have. I mean, I don't want to like overstate something, but like you kind of have brought him back to life in a way. It's like we have new John Candy in our lives, and that's a really we were missing him. You don't realize you're missing him until you see him, and then you're like, oh my god, that's what's been missing the last 30 years in pop culture.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Thank you, man. I mean, I that means a lot to me. I mean, no, I feel the exact same way. In fact, I remember Ryan Reynolds, who is one of the producers on the film, and he was really sort of the eternal flame for John Candy. I mean, he's such a huge fan, and in our first conversation, he just said, like, look, I just think it's wrong that there's not a John Candy documentary. I think there should be one in this world. I have no idea what it is, but there should be one. And I pretty much said, I agree with both of those statements.
I know how to make documentaries, actually. So
I don't know what that movie is, but it should exist. So let's find out. Let's see if we can do it. And luckily, we've been fortunate enough to do it. So I'm really, really happy to hear that, man. Thank you.
Well, and look, you've made some great docs we've talked a little bit about in the past too. And documentary filmmaking is a unique beast. I mean, it's obviously like something that you're kind of discovering along the way. You can go in with a plan, but you have to kind of almost surrender to what you discover, I would imagine. Can you give me a little bit of a sense of like what you thought this was going to be going in and how it evolved a little bit along the way?
Yeah, I mean, there is a component. It's kind of like a documentary film. It's kind of like building a house, but all of the components and the construction, wood and everything's already on fire. So you don't quite know, like, you're like, we gotta do this. We gotta figure this out. And there's no like roadmap. There's no real kind of like text that you can point to and say, we're doing this. But you need to have an idea, and you need to have a theme, and that's got to be strong enough that you can not only convince yourself, but convince other people, and other people with money to hold hands with you and jump off of a cliff together. And that is coming up with that initial idea, that spark, that's always the hardest thing. And you can't really rush it. So to answer your question, I had this conversation with Ryan, where we knew that, okay, we want to do a documentary about John. What is it? And, the first sort of like gut idea, which is not right a majority of the time, but it's just something that you got to do to just sort of like get going, was, okay, quote unquote, overweight actor dies too young. Who do you think of? And it's always the same sort of three guys,
right?
Two of whom died of drug overdoses, but the other guy didn't. Okay, well, what is that? Why that is? And so I then just sort of really dug into John's history, just his family history. And um, there were two things that I found that were incredibly sort of like eye popping. One was the fact that John had lost his father. His father died at 35 years of age on John's fifth birthday.
Right.
I heard that and I was like, wow, that is a lot to unpack. And that is, having lost a parent, not at that young an age, but having experienced that, like, that's heavy. And obviously, knowing that that also happened to his children,
Yes.
that was heavy. So then that led to a conversation with Chris and Jen, whom I know a little bit. We the three of us at different times all went to Loyola Marymount University in LA. So we had mutual contact with over the years, mutual friends and stuff like that. And I had a conversation with Chris, and Chris said something that was really sort of profound, which was that John had gotten to that point, early 40s, generally speaking, is when this happens, where people start doing that work on themselves, where they start seeing a therapist maybe and start doing that, that sort of introspective look into yourself and why you are the way that you are, and what you want to change, whatever. And he said that John had just started to do that, and was always the guy that took care of everyone else except himself. He was always last. And those things combined with, John losing his father at a young age, like, that was the thing that just like I was like, that's the idea. That's the thing that's worth exploring, because John symbolized he was the everyman. Don Lake talks about it in the film, where you see him up on the screen, you go, that's us. That's, he had that quality, that genuine quality, where he just seemed real. And I thought how fascinating that the third act, struggle that he has is not something salacious or anything like that. It's something everyone experiences, which is, hey, I've experienced some things in my life, and the coping mechanisms worked for a bit, but now they're not suiting me anymore.
Right.
I need to do that work. And unfortunately, he didn't get a chance to really do that work, and passed away before he could.
And you talk about, how all of us kind of bring like who we are. I mean, we're about the same age. We're older than John was than when he sadly passed.
Yeah.
It's just like a mind fuck. It's like, what? How is
completely. Completely. Well, completely. It doesn't make much sense. Do you know what I mean? And so, like, even for me, like, my mom died when she was 49. So I'm 47. I'm coming up on that age. So I relate to that thing that John was feeling of, like, I'm not sure if I'm going to make it past, 35. Like, I understand that sort of clock, and not being able to really comprehend, like, wow, I've almost lived the same amount of time as, but there's just something about, there was just something about that just felt so human and so real, and now is something that's openly discussed. At that time, it wasn't real therapy. Mental health was not a term anyone talked about. Right. It definitely wasn't part of a national or cultural conversation, like, at all. Therapists were just something that really, really lucky people that were needed to complain about stuff did.
Right.
That was kind of like how it was viewed, and now that's totally different. So again, another example of just how much John was like everyone else.
Not to mention, like, I mean,
spoiler alert: John was just a human being.
He was. He was also larger than life, and, like, I mean, you talk about like the weight, which is such like part of his identity in many ways, and it's like it's really fascinating to see some of the interview stuff you have in here of the way, like, openly, like, just like mocked, like how it was okay somehow.
Yeah,
like
it's heartbreaking. That to me was, I mean, there's a lot of stuff about John and John's experiences in this film that I can relate to, not only as, a human, but as an actor. That particularly was so soul crushing to me to see, first off, how uncomfortable John was in an interview. I don't know why I assumed that would not be the case, but I did. I just assumed, oh, the John Candy that I remember, that I always want him to be, I'm just assuming that he was like that in every interview. He wasn't. He actually was very uncomfortable in almost every interview he gave. Yeah. His entire career, really. I mean, he really was uncomfortable. And it was because deep down, he knew they're going to ask about my weight.
Right.
And you'd go, well, why is that a big deal? Well, when you see how people asked him about his weight,
it all makes sense. Yeah,
it makes sense.
No wonder he didn't want to sit in that hot seat, because he knew he was about to be taken down.
And in a way that, quite honestly, is not acceptable. Just would not fly in this day and age. That kind of stuff was just heartbreaking, and again, just made me go like, this is exactly where. This is the kind of stuff that I want to explore, because that's the kind of stuff that really makes us understand who John was as a real human being, not John Candy, the comedy icon.
And on the comedy icon front, though, I mean, look, it's undeniable what he brought to film and TV. I mean, I'm wearing, my Real Genius 80s, I'm an 80s kid. And so I grew up with all this stuff. I mean, you did too. And obviously, like, your dad worked with him. So I'm sure that colors a little bit. I don't know if you met him in real life before you.
Oh, yeah. No. I have very vivid memories of John.
So I guess tell me a little bit about that, but also just tell me about, like, I don't know, as a film fan, like, we love to geek out here. Like, what was inspiring, exciting for you as a kid that made him stick out from the crowd, whether it was a performance or a film in particular?
Well, my introduction to John was John as just John. He was just a guy that worked with my dad, and he was kind, and he made me feel important, and he listened to me. Pretty much everything that Macaulay Culkin speaks about in the film was my experience. He would actually take the time to ask me how I was doing and made me feel, important. So those were my memories of John, and they are actually very, very special and dear to me. So that to me, like, again, another little connective tissue there. And then you have got.
No, you're good. You're good. And then on the film side, but just like as a lover of movies, okay, you start to see his movies. Yeah. What are the ones that really just, like, you jump out to you early at going that, like, oh wow, this guy is special? So
the thing that I really enjoyed was noticing just how much of a true performer John was, even if it was in something supremely broad. Mm-hmm. He had this skill set where the specificity of what he was doing was an actual true performance. It wasn't just him being, like, silly and big with a joke. Like, it was a performance. And what I loved was seeing just how much of that was sort of born and bred during SCTV, and how a lot of the performances that we love from his movies, like, his role in Vacation, or even, Home Alone, but also Splash, are all stem from characters that he had kind of developed during SCTV. So that idea of being able to sort of chart his artistic sort of arc, that to me was really interesting and really fantastic. And look, I had not seen Splash since 1985. I saw it once in a theater, and I cried my eyes out so much I never wanted to see the movie again. But I'm sure that wouldn't be the case now. But
well, you were sad because Dad was off with, like, a mermaid. What's going on? This doesn't make any sense.
He can breathe underwater now? Like, that's not what he's told me. What the fuck?
Talk about needing therapy. Jeez.
Yeah, exactly. I can't even get him in the pool. But learning that, he was doing like that was like my dad's first introduction really into, like, improv and yes and that sort of additive collaborative thing that John incorporated into all of his work. Like as an actor, that's like, ooh, I love hearing those kinds of things. But then the other real big takeaway is, as an actor, it's kind of hard to kind of, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explore themes and put yourself into your work because, more often than not, you're not an astronaut going off to do whatever, like so you have to find these small little threads, and you have to find some way to be able to put yourself into your artwork. And then you also need to have a good enough reason to go spend time away from your family.
Right.
And the fact that John was kind of like, a lot of his roles were sort of like trying to create an ideal father figure, and sort of like be the father that he didn't have as a kid. We have that scene from The Great Outdoors where the kid says like, oh, you're trying to recreate the camping trip that you had with your dad, and cuts to John and he says, yeah, but we know that John never had that.
Right.
Those kinds of like reframing those films and those moments, that kind of stuff was so fascinating to me. Not only as the director, but as an actor, I just thought, yeah, okay. So fascinating to see that play out.
And not to mention, I remember, I'm a teenager seeing him in JFK and Only the Lonely, and not to mention a couple years prior, like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Like he was on a trajectory. It's like, we'll never know, needless to say. But the man would be in his early 70s now. And it feels like there's no doubt. I mean, it's crazy to say the best was yet to come because of what he had accomplished. But I think it would have been a very varied, more drama, just a mix of everything. The way Bill Murray has been able to kind of reinvent himself as doing a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Oh, completely. I mean, that's really sort of what makes it really tragic. Do you know what I mean? And I think, obviously, and we explored a little bit in the movie, the fact that he really truly was a performer. He was an actor, not a comedian. He was an actor. The fact that was sort of kind of where that was headed, it's sad because it's really when you think about the kind of stuff that he could have done and the performances that we could have gotten, beyond just the funny ones. It's a real shame.
Well, we don't want to let people think that they're going to they might actually cry, but it is a joyous film. It's a joyous.
It is a funny film. It's
very funny.
There are jokes. There are jokes. There are funny things.
I was privileged enough to be there at the premiere. That was such a special night to see it in a theater, but it is going to be available for everybody in a matter of hours on Prime. So everybody should check this out. Congratulations, man. I hope you're feeling like a big exhale, and you've done right by a true icon and working with the family. I know they're very involved and they're obviously pleased. So hopefully you're enjoying, what must have been, stressful at times, but
I am. No, it's been really great. And the reception that the film's gotten so far has just been so beyond what I could have hoped for. So yeah, I'm really happy, man. Thank you very much, Josh.
Excellent. All right, guys, check out John Candy, I Like Me, October 10th, Prime Video, everywhere. Colin, always good to catch up, man. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, man. Take it easy.
And so ends another edition of Happy, Sad, Confused. Remember to review, rate, and subscribe to this show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm a big podcast person. I'm Daisy Ridley, and I definitely wasn't pressured to do this by Josh.